want to make sure that we are making full use of those opportunities to benefit the area and our people. That's the point why we're all here, actually. Despite what it sometimes appears, that is, I never doubt the motivation of all officers, all councillors, all other people involved, that what we're trying to do is make it better for our people in what is, frankly, a very tough cost of living crisis and in many other respects. So we must work very closely together. We must take full opportunity now that's going to come our way. If we miss those, other regions will grasp them to our detriment, so we mustn't allow that to happen. So obviously I'll move on from that. So can I also give my very warmest congratulations to Claire Young MP, who obviously is very well known to us and who served on this committee very well for just over a year, I think it was. So good luck to her. I obviously see her about as well these days in that new role. And can I also, on a personal level, thank and send my very best wishes to my honourable friend, Alex Mayer MP, who many of you know from her work for us in the past. And I'm very thrilled about that. She's the best campaigner I've ever met in my life, and I've met some very good ones. So I'm not surprised by that result, to be honest. Okay, right. Then let's move on. So since the general election, I have met with our new Prime Minister at Number 10 to discuss priorities for our region, our great region. And I welcome, obviously, the Prime Minister's early calling of a meeting with mayors, because it is an indication of intent and the importance he puts in devolution and what we must do now together to make sure we make full use of the Prime Minister's intent. I'd also like to take this opportunity to note that we have a new Police and Crime Commissioner, Claire Moody, and we are working on an important plan to tackle violence against young people, especially in particular the challenges of knife crime. And I know that all members of the committee share that concern, because you've all talked to me at one stage or another about that. And I know Claire is very keen to help lead as the Police and Crime Commissioner on that front, and I very much welcome it, and I know we'll try and cooperate as well as we possibly can. It's a difficult and sensitive issue, but what is important, I think, is that we make a difference, because I know you all are just deeply concerned, as I am, about the nature of this particular violence, knife violence in particular, but it's also violence against young people, and indeed women and children is a particular issue, and I know we're all wanting to deal with that. So let me flag up my intent on that. I know that reflects your intent too, and obviously the new Police and Crime Commissioner's intent as well. Okay, we now move on to item 5, which is items from the public. There were 21 questions, I think I'm right in saying, that were received in advance of this meeting from 11 individual people. In responses to these questions will be circulated and published on the West of England Combined Authorities website. In addition, there were several other statements. Let me just see how many. I think I've got 9 on my list. Received, and these have been circulated to the committee and will be published with the agenda papers on the Combined Authority website. Some of the statement writers are here today, and I can see some of them as I look up, and they'll be invited to speak shortly. There is a maximum time limit of 3 minutes per speaker. As you know, I'm a bit flexible on that, so don't be nervous, don't rush. Say what you need to say clearly as you can, please. We have received a lot of correspondence on one particular issue, that's the 84/85 bus route. So there will not be enough time, I'm afraid, to hear from everybody. It just isn't possible. So what you will hear today is a flavour of the comments that have been made, just so that people get an understanding. People who've written to me directly will, of course, be answered as quickly as I can on that issue and other issues too, where appropriate. Okay, so we do that now, don't we? Yeah. So can I check, is Rosa Kell here? Rosa? Hello, Rosa. How are you doing? Are you ready for your 3 minutes? It's not like a bomb goes off at the end of the 3 minutes. You take your time and do what you've got to do, and hopefully the microphones are going to work for you properly. Could you want to just check?
Hello, good afternoon.
Can people hear Rosa? Is that working?
No, it's not working.
It's not working. Okay.
That's okay. I will speak as loud as I possibly can.
Do you, if you want, sort of stand sideways if it helps you, Rosa, rather than look at me, because that might make it easier, and we'll give you a bit more time because it's harder to speak when you're projecting, isn't it?
Thank you. My questions to you this afternoon were...
It's working.
Is it working? Oh, yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My questions to you are obviously been circulated. So I'm going to abridge them a little bit in view of what you've just said, and there are a lot of speakers. What I want to say is, Of course, you are our regional mayor. The region is very, very wide. Can we please try to find some way that we can Zoom these meetings so questions can be asked via Zoom or Teams or what other method that can be done? Because it's a long way to come for those of us who have mobility issues or anyone else for other meetings. Please, Mayor. Oh gosh, I don't know where to start. I'll just read.
While you're working that out, Rosa, I thought you were going to break into song then, because you said it's a long way, and I thought you were going to go to Tipperary then.
Well, no, I'm not quite as
Now you've got
as
the mic
far as
working.
Ireland, but believe me, going into Unitary Somerset from here, it probably feels like it.
Yeah. Have you managed to find where you need to be? You okay
Yeah.
now? Okay.
The area obviously covers Gloucestershire, Wiltshire, Baines, South Gloucestershire, Bristol City Council, North Somerset, Wiltshire, Bournemouth, Poole, Christchurch, all the areas that are a part of the Western Gateway transport. I wonder what progress you have been making in connecting those. I know that there has been some work with the Peninsular Board, and we just wonder what cross-boundary connections you are making regarding coach, bus and train. We'd like to remind the council and ask you if you please could work on the Bath Travel Centre. It's a very important regional major bus station connecting not far from the railway station, and there should be someone there giving information to the public. We also wonder what progress is being made regarding lifts at Weston-super-Mare, Nailsea and Blackwell. Obviously, being a disabled person myself, it's a very important issue. Disabled Parsons Street, Bristol Lawrence Hill, Stapleton Road, and the reopening of Bristol Temple Meads, Pill, Portishead line. I'm not going to read it all. You guys have all seen it. We need your help on the North Somerset 126. It continues to be a problem. We have managed to reinstate it, but unfortunately every 2 hours, and at the moment is leaving a lot of passengers at the bus stops because it's overcrowded and it's putting people away from bus passenger, doing all the damage that we've been doing for a while. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosa. Well done. That was a hard one with the microphone not working at the beginning. Thank you. So look, I have heard what you said. Look, I think it's a very interesting idea about maybe we have some way that people can come in remotely to contribute, because, as you say, it's a very large area with 1 million people in it, and if you go even wider, it's obviously an even higher population. In terms of transport that crosses boundaries from the West of England Combined Authority area into other places, that is a challenge. That might be something that we need to talk about with the new government to try and work out if there are ways of resolving, because by definition, Kevin will agree, I know, because he has issues with transport that goes from his council area into Wiltshire, which is very similar to the South Gloucestershire one, the Bristol, South Gloucestershire, Gloucestershire proper route. Maybe we can find a way of kind of overcoming that, because transport moves. And this, is very difficult because I have responsibility for an area. I'm held accountable by you, the people living in the area, and yet there could be expenditure that goes outside the area. So it creates tensions and difficulties, and we should be able to resolve that, I would hope. So we'll need, there should be. Now, well, that's a much bigger thing. But look, if we could resolve the bus routes that are predominantly in our area that go elsewhere to try and avoid some of the difficulties that are created, that would be wonderful. I can't guarantee that, but I think we should start having discussions about that for sure. Rosa, you're doing very well to get 6 minutes out of your presentation, so I'm going to have to stop you. But thank you. Good point. So I hope that reassures you a little bit. So we'll definitely look at how we can bring some remote access into the meeting. That's a very good idea, and we'll think about how we might be able to resolve with council leaders like Kevin and others here, how we might be able to resolve some of these challenges that keep coming up and cause such distress and difficulty, and yet the rules don't really allow us to resolve it in the normal way. It needs some kind of different solution, I think. So we'll have to try and see if there is a way forward on that. Okay, thank you very much, Rosa. Is Linda Cohen here, please? Linda. Hello, Linda. You might want to check the mic.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm here today from Wootton because I want to save our bus, the 84 and 85 service, a timetabled service. And it's a service that runs between Wootton and Yate. I start from a point of pragmatism, knowing that budgets are tight and how incredibly important it is to spend the very limited resources we have well. However, we do not live in gated communities, so this idea that there is a firm border across which nobody goes is total nonsense. So if we forget about the people of Gloucestershire and we look at the people of South Gloucestershire, they cross that border and come into Wootton to use our pharmacy, to use our doctors, to use our incredibly good schools. And so as a result, they are your responsibility, and their ability to get there is your responsibility and is budget that should come out of the limited funds that you have available to support them. It shouldn't be something that anybody gets irate about. However, we are not having those conversations because certainly when it came to the discussion about the West Local Service, nobody would countenance including Wootton, which is a disgrace. So we find ourselves in an impossible situation where the people in Wootton can't go south and the people in South Glos can't effectively go north. So what I would like to see happen is for the councils to get together and sit down, because this has gone on for too long. We've been campaigning for 18 months without people who are paid good money to actually take effective discussions, coming together around a table, saving time and actually resolving this situation. Because this is about our children's futures. This is about children getting to school. This is about people going to work. There's a lot of talk at the moment about economic prosperity, lifting people out of poverty. And the single biggest obstacle to people getting to work and education is the lack of public transport. And that you can look it up, all the research points to that fact. So let's start there. But let's start with you all sitting down and having a conversation. You've seen my statement. Barbara Lawrence and the campaign team have collected more data than anyone would think possible. Impact statements, quantitative data, qualitative data about every single use of every single journey. It's all there. It makes perfect business sense. We need a proper timetabled service and not a dial-up service, which is only of use to people at leisure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Linda. Now, Linda, you'll have heard from my previous answer to the first person who gave a presentation that I think we need to find a new way through, because I'm afraid we can sit around a table for as long as we like, but the current rules don't allow some of the things that you're wanting. And I think what politicians have to do, and the message of the general election, if nothing else, perhaps first and foremost, is that there needs to be honesty and integrity from politicians. And I think part of the difficulty is that politicians haven't in the past said, look, this is just not possible, we need to find a solution, we'll sort it out with government. So that's what I am asking you to understand. I will go away, as you have heard, I have some liaison with the new MP, Simon Ofer, has already been on to me about this. We need to have discussions at an appropriate level. I'm afraid it's not as simple as I wish it would be, and I just want to be very honest about that. There are reasons why. Okay. Fine. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it needs a bit of creative disruption and a bit of clever thinking. And maybe
Yeah.
that patching the service together to solve those problems. So it's about thinking, but it won't happen if people don't want to.
Well, it won't happen, and it won't happen if people are sort of putting on responsibilities that they don't have. So I don't have responsibility for some of the things you're saying, but what I am saying, and I hope you heard the bit I said earlier, which is I think is quite important, that I think we need to find a new way for the reasons I've already mentioned without rehearsing it again. And I hope in that spirit you'll want to be part of that, and maybe we can find a way through. Okay. Yeah. Well, working together is a two-way street. So what we need to do is perhaps not be jumping on each other and finding a way to find a common ground and then make the case to government to hopefully find a good exception. I can't promise that because that's part of the process, but I think we should endeavour to do that, and I agree with you that much. Okay? Right, let's go on. Is Sue Hope here, please? Sue. Hello, Sue.
Hello, and well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I'm Sue Hope. I'm a Hawkesbury Parish Council Chair and formerly a South Gloss Councillor. Whilst we're very grateful for a successful bid for the West Local funds to help provide a bus service in some, and I'll say some, of the rural villages of South Gloucestershire, that's Hawkesbury, Upton, Horton, Wickwar and Charfield. I was very much aware of the very, very tight timescale that this had to be submitted and other restrictions which have been placed on this emerging service, which is and very sad to hear that it's not going to go cross-border. Now, I understand the service will not, from Hawkesbury at least, commence before 9 a.m, wondering how this will help those who want to work in Yate or the wider area. And of course, the service does not venture into Wootton Under Edge, where many of our young people attend post-16 education. The Save the Wootton Edge bus group has worked hard and tirelessly and had great success in raising the profile and value of this bus service, the 8485, for those in the locality. Not only access to work and education, as Linda said, which is extremely important, but also to raise the value that the community gets from this sort of service of riding on the bus. The positive social impact of this is second to none. Indeed, I came along on the bus this morning on the 848 to catch the train, which is another story, but it was full. That bus was full. It is, I can only say, it is a very, very well-used service. As a non-driver and a retired South Gloucester councillor, I've made great use of the 84. It used to take me from door to door, from Hawkesbury Upton to Kingswood council offices. What an amazing service that was. Now, I realise that those days are gone, and they're probably not going to come back. But the service is one of great value, providing vital link between the villages and our neighbouring market towns and odd ones into Bristol. And it's wonderful to see this service being so well used, especially post-COVID, because that service did run during COVID. I was absolutely amazed, but the service did run during COVID. So thanks to everybody for that. And I was among the first to raise a petition to South Gloucestershire Council via Councillor Patrell about the axing of that 8485. I think that was 22. Time goes when you get old, but I think it was 22. I think somebody will be able to look that up. Westlink, the demand-led transport system. Now, I also chair the Town and Parish Council Forum, and this was pounced on us very, very much at the last minute. I must say, we were not impressed, and I understand since that time it's been rebooted and reorganised. But I've got to say the communication system is extremely poor. It's dependent on IT. Now, I am not IT savvy, and I can say probably about 85% of the people who use the buses are not terribly IT savvy. So it has a failing there, I think, certainly. Nothing worth fighting for is easy, is it? And I appreciate the hard work and the bureaucracy that is involved in developing a new transport system. I think you've mentioned it, Mayor, yourself, who's saying we've got to do this. But if we are to have a greener planet, access to services for rural areas and those without access to a car, together with community involvement, we need a frequent, reliable, and dare I say, integrated transport system that works for all, which means working, as already said, working with others cross borders to achieve this. I'm grateful to South Gloucestershire Council, the West of England Rural Network who put the bid in, the Save the Wootton Bus Group, and I hope we could all work together with the transport authorities cross-boundary who provide the funds for transport services to work for an improved service for our valuable local bus network. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Sue. Is Peter Maxwell here, please? Peter, hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you. So I've submitted some questions regarding bus services for Winterbourne Academy, which you may have seen. I think in the past week there have been some developments, but I think the rest of my statement still is still relevant. So I will say this: crucial bus services for Winterbourne Academy have been cancelled. Remaining bus services have been delayed, restricted to an inflexible season ticket payment model, and with proposals for seats to be allocated via a lottery. There's a huge demand for these buses, which are a lifeline for over 150 families and 200 children. But with cancellations and restrictions to ticketing and payment, these buses will be unavailable or unaffordable. For children that rely on these buses, this will have a huge impact. Walking and cycling routes are dangerous, unrealistically long, or for some students, attempting them is not physically possible. For parents and families, most cannot make all the required journeys by car, but if all journeys were to be made by car, this could lead to about 47,000 extra car journeys per year, resulting in approximately 3.7 metric tonnes of particulates and 11 tonnes of NOx. For some parents, it puts their employment at risk. Inflexible ticketing as well as lottery allocation reduces overall provision, risks separating families, or just leaving children with no way to get home. For these children, many as young as 11, this directly risks their access to education. For those able to attempt it, long and unsafe journeys will put children directly in harm's way, will be physically exhausting, affecting mental health and academic achievement. The school's own survey is flawed, capturing only data from 23-24 when the 458 departed at 7 a.m. and was only offered via season ticket. At a stroke, this made it unaffordable and pushed many onto the 459. This resulted in children being frequently turned away from the 459 or facing a bus ride operating over capacity, one assumes illegally, and even then, with a long walk home afterwards. The same mistake cannot be allowed to happen next year with the 459. In addition, parents have evidence that South Gloss Council may be incorrectly applying DFE funding guidance for free transport. If this is true, it's likely that demand and provision for public transport to Winterbourne Academy has been underestimated. On behalf of parents and children, I urge WECA to work with South Gloss Council to set up a full and flexible bus services that meet the needs of children. For those children who don't legitimately qualify for free transport, parents are happy to pay for the journeys they need, so services will be well supported financially. But we need WECA and South Gloss Council to collaborate, plan, organise and fund where needed, and to consider alternative ways of getting children to and from school, for example, extending the 427 Frenchay bus to Downend. Helping children to get to school is achievable, and this problem isn't going to go away. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Peter. Okay, as a former pupil of the Ridings High, I take a keen interest in what goes on there, so thank you for updating us. Okay, is Alan Rogers here? Alan. Hi, Alan. Are you ready to go?
Just about, yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. When you're ready. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to prepare this. My name is Alan Rogers, and I'd like to air some of the views of families regarding the ongoing funding and tendering problems of buses to Winterbourne Academy. Winterbourne is the largest school in South Gloucestershire, set in a semi-rural location with poor public transport links. It has historically taken children who could not get into more local schools. Over the last few years, there has been a repeated dance involving a number of parties around maintaining these bus services. And this has now reached the point where a large number of families are likely to have no realistic means of getting their children to school in September, which is a pretty basic ask. The 458 has been scrapped completely, the 459 uncertain and over capacity, and the 457 apparently saved at the last minute last week. All these families selected Winterbourne, safe in the knowledge that there were buses that they could use if needed. And just to be clear, despite the discussions ongoing around about who qualifies for free transport, most of the families are not asking for free anything. They've always paid. And children will now face a long and dangerous walk along busy roads with no pavements or crossings, and this is exacerbated by all the traffic, including HGVs, now using the Bristol Road to avoid the long-term closure of the A432. If the walking route from Frenchay is deemed unsafe, which it is, then the route from Downend must also be deemed unsafe because it's the same route. Local bus companies offer giveaway deals like free travel during your birthday month, and they also run regular services that are poorly used outside of peak hours. These school buses are one journey each in the morning and one return in the afternoon, with a captive and reliable fare base, so what's not to like for the bus companies? A recent parent-led survey shows a great demand for these buses, a combined total of 220 pupils, and this is almost certainly an underestimate. But a letter received by parents last Friday proposes to solve the problem of oversubscription by asking for payment in advance per term and then via a lottery. And all this is on the assumption that there will even be buses for everyone next year. Deciding who gets a school seat on a bus or not on the basis of a lottery is insulting to all the families involved and deeply ironic given that it shows that there is real demand for that bus. How can it be that a bus service is pulled for alleged commercial reasons when it is oversubscribed? And also, demanding upfront full-term fees is also blatant discrimination against those less financially able families, and that is not right and seems almost designed to fail. An important principle seems to have been inverted here. Services like school buses only exist to serve the community, whereas now it looks like the community exists to service bus company profits. With all the new housing planned for our area, this is not going to just go away. It's going to get worse until there is a long-term integrated policy and adequate funding. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Alan. Well, it was exactly why I was against the bus deregulation back in the 80s, because what's happening is what lots of people feared back then. And I'm afraid profit is the motivator, and that's why you get these distortions. And Kevin would concur with that, I'm sure, and others around the table, Ian certainly. That is the problem. So we're going to have to look at that, because I think transport actually is a social need, like the NHS and other things. But of course, it's who pays for it and can we afford it is the big issue. So, we'll have to look at this space. But thank you for your update on all that. It's useful for us to know. Thank you very much. Okay, is Barbara Lawrence here? Barbara? You must have all come on a bus, I think. I never thought that was going to be said. Okay, Barbara, are you ready to go? Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too.
I'm part of the group campaigning to save the 84-85 bus. Glos and South Glos communities benefit from the interconnectivity, and axing the bus will cause social and economic deprivation. Local transport authorities who gained the regional funding through BSIP have a responsibility to collaborate in an effort to agree a funding solution to ensure that our well-used bus continues beyond 31st of August. Failure by WECA to collaborate with Glos County Council and South Glos Council is wrong, and you will be held accountable if you do not work together as outlined in the National Bus Strategy. Our bus route serves 11 communities. It's cross-boundary, allowing residents to access employment, education, GP appointments, affordable shopping, and onward travel links. Visitors use this bus to come to our towns and villages. It helps our local businesses to prosper. During the 23-24 academic year, around 17 students were able to access the KLB school using our bus. Care homes in Hawkesbury and Kingswood employ ethnic minority care workers. They're there to care for our vulnerable loved ones, and they may be isolated when this bus is removed. People with mobility and disability and special needs rely on a stable and regular bus route. They would be vulnerable to a service with delays and diversions such as DRT. Plans to build housing means communities need infrastructure, which includes a reliable bus service. Plans to rebuild Charfield railway station are in the pipeline and will require appropriate bus service, which makes plans to axe the bus very short-sighted. On the 19th of July, Glos and South Glos residents held a cross-county boundary protest walk to mark our collective lack of confidence in the authorities who have decided to sever our connectivity. Labour promotes Metro mayors to lead combined authorities and expect them to use their devolved powers across councils, ensuring everyone is represented and rural areas are given the same consideration as the urban ones. Dan Norris has apparently failed in his role as lead director. Failure to acknowledge that as local transport authority, you have part responsibility for funding the 84-85 bus. West Local is a temporary fix. Various pots of cash which combined would have contributed to our 84-85 bus. Westlink, introduced to complement bus routes, not to replace them, costs more per passenger mile and is proving unreliable and unviable. Please reconsider your decision to remove our lifeline of service.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Even got my officers clapping you. Well done. That's really good. Barbara, look, I want to be very honest with you. Look, if we could help you, we would. We'd genuinely be restricted. That's why I've said what I've said. My officers can only do things within the rules, within the law. And what it seems to me is it's this challenge about, because transport moves and it's near boundaries, and it's not just your area. Kevin will testify to what goes on between his border and Wiltshire. There are issues about that too. And we've got to try and get some kind of way of sorting that out. As in funding, because what happens is inevitably I'm held to account by the voters in the West of England Combined Authority area, quite rightly, that's my responsibility to them. I'm not to those in Gloucestershire proper, but I see the close links and I'm hearing all about it today. I understand that, I have sympathy with the problem. What we have to do is try and find a solution, and other people have spoken about that. So thank you very much for your contribution, it's really valuable. Well, that won't be true. But what will be true is that we can't have discussions about things we're not allowed to do. We obviously can't spend forever discussing things that we can't help. It would be wrong to give people that unrealistic expectation that we could help. We have to be clear and very candid about that. But look, I think we are agreeing that there are limitations to this current system. What I think we're trying to do, hopefully, is build up some kind of consensus that we might find a way through with some sensible and intelligent changes in the future. That may require my organisation and me to find a way through to cooperate with others, but it will need the other people to cooperate, and maybe the government can help us with that. Now, we'll have to see, we'll have to try, because I'm sympathetic to that. Well, I'd love to be able to just do that and help you. I can't. It's not that simple. If it were, it would have happened, and that would apply to the other people. I mean, Ian Bolton has worked very hard on this and helped out in the past. But we are in a very difficult place, and the difficulty is that there's only so much money, and inflation in the bus industry is very high. Also, commercial operators make decisions not to do things, and we don't have control about that. I don't agree with that. I wish that wasn't the system, but I have to deal with the world as it is, not as I hope it will be, but there is an opportunity, I believe, so in the future we can get some kind of changes that will deal with your problem. And you're not alone. It's not just your communities. I hear this quite a lot from other areas right at the edge of the West of England Combined Authority region. So it is a challenge. We've got to try and find a way through, because clearly the price is being paid by individual people, many of whom are not here, and we've got to have those in mind as we make our decisions, haven't we? Okay, well, look, thank you very much for your contribution. That's very helpful. Right, who's next? Is it Brian Walter? Brian, hello. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. My name is Brian Walter. I'm a parish councillor on Wickwar Parish Council, which has made a written submission to you, and I wanted to underline the most significant points raised in that submission. It's been said there's no money, but clearly there is. What you're really saying is that your political choice is not to spend some of that money on supporting rural transport and in particular on the 84-85 service. That means probably that you're also effectively saying that we're somehow second-class citizens. We pay our taxes, but we're not worthy of support in this particular issue. That means that members of our community who need this bus service to get to school, to get to medical appointments, who are disabled or need to remain economically active through being able to travel to work, will feel abandoned because the alternative demand-led Westlink and proposed Wern services don't deliver the reliability of a scheduled service. You're also being unfair to future generations by doing nothing to reduce reliance on car traffic and making the challenges of climate change worse. We now have more MPs from the region in government, including you, Mayor. So we're looking to you and the government to resolve these issues. I don't think we should be putting up with the fact that cross-border issues are preventing the continuation of the service. And as Barbara has said, come the 1st of September, many people will feel abandoned and will be genuinely isolated. You have money and you have a choice. So make the sensible choice to support rural transport for all our sakes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Very clear and direct. Thank you. Okay. Amelia Melville. It's Amelia Melville. Amelia, welcome. We'll just get the microphone over to you, and when you're ready, please.
Hello.
Thank you.
Is it working? Yeah, it's working. Hi, so I'm Amelia Melville. I'm here from the Reclaim Our Buses campaign, and my colleague Anna Mountney submitted a statement, which I'm going to read. And first, I wanted to really welcome your opening statements about collaboration and about the opportunities we now have with a Labour government in power. And I really hope that that will manifest into a lot of changes happening. We've heard so many stories about buses not working and how important they are for people. And you've hinted at some more systemic changes that are needed. We are campaigning for the buses in the west of England to be franchised so that you would actually have control and people will come to you, and rather than saying, I can't do anything about that, you will then be able to do something about that. So that's really where we're coming from. It's important that that franchised system is designed to enable good cross-border collaboration and that there's a real consideration of what those boundaries are and how that interaction happens, and that it's designed in a way where passengers and bus users are able to participate in the governance, give input, and have their voice within the governance of a franchise system. And as people have raised, do we want a future that continues to be more and more car dependent? We can't afford to do that. Climate change is already happening. It's disturbing our weather systems. And we need a future where people who are willing to choose to use the bus can reliably choose to use the bus, and it can join up with improved rail services, tram systems, other mass transit. All of that needs to be linked up. The links need to be accessible so that the bus stops close to the train station and people don't have to walk a long distance. There are level access points, and the timetables and ticketing are all lined up with each other. So, you have Anna's written statement, which I'm sure you've read and is available for everybody to read. But those are the key points that we want to make. And, in the past, you haven't responded to all of our questions about franchising, and you've promised a report about the barriers or possibilities of franchising in the West of England region. We've understood that with a new Labour government, it will be possible to do that. So, are there any remaining barriers? When is that report going to come? And when will you start the formal process of an investigation of franchising for the West of England region, which will then give you access to proper data to make a business case for whether that will be the right option for this region? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amelia. Amelia, what I'd say is that I don't think there's a person around the table here on the committee who doesn't think there's a climate emergency, and I'm pleased about that because we have to agree that we need to act, I think, in lots of ways, and that hasn't always been the case in the past. But the other thing I say about franchising is we are our situation is unique. Now, a report has gone out to local councils. They have been looking at it. They're feeding back. They're talking. Their officers are talking to our officers, and politicians will be talking about that to some extent. But it won't be as straightforward as some other places. So places like Manchester have got things in place that we'll need to have in place already, and that will require legislation and things. So it isn't as straightforward as people might seem. The Labour government will be giving more powers and resources to try and bring about some of those things and achieve some of those things, but we will still have to be in the legal space that's proper and correct. We can't just do it quickly like other places who already got these things in place. So just to say it's complicated. Also, where franchising's already happened, local councils have been asked for quite a lot of money, and I'm going to look at my council colleagues here, and I can tell you now that if I ask them for a lot of money for franchising, and I mean a lot of money, like hundreds of millions probably, they won't be able to pay that or find that at the drop of a hat. They'd have to think about that. They'd have to work that out. So we have got some challenges. It won't be straightforward. What we're going to do, though, is work really hard to find a way through to improve the lot of the transport users in our region, whether that's bus, train, tram, whatever it might be, okay? We're already on it. I know it feels slow, okay. Right, and then last but not least, Joe Sargent. Is Joe here? Well done, Joe. Thanks for waiting.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually here about a bus service in Bristol, which is, a change, I guess. It's actually, the good news is that the bus is back up and running as it should be, but this is really a tale about communication or lack of communication. And the two issues that I want to raise are, first of all, why a decision was made to withdraw a subsidised service from the people of Lawrence Weston while a road was being repaired, rather than to modify the route to allow them to still have some access. That decision was made, I don't know when. I don't have any information about it, but all I know is that it was made, and it was made apparently on the grounds of saving money. But no one else seemed to know about it. No residents were told about it. This happened because of a historic bridge that had to be repaired, and people might not know about it, but it's a very pretty bridge, about 200 years old, and it had to be removed, and then it had needed quite a long time to repair it. As a result of that, the road underneath it was closed, and that meant that the bus couldn't run along that road. But the bus in question is the number 10. It goes from Severn Beach, I believe, through Avonmouth and then into Lawrence Weston and up into Westbury on Trim and, most importantly, Southmead Hospital. And the people that live along the route, particularly the route that was affected, the part of the route that was affected, many of them are older people who live in sort of sheltered type of accommodation, who need to access, have healthcare appointments fairly regularly. And as a result of this decision, they lost their bus, and that they lost that bus for 4 months. Now, I appreciate from listening to what everyone in South Gloss have had to say about their bus, this is probably not seen as being as big an issue. But the big problem was that nobody got told about it. So one day, people were going, out to the bus stop to get the bus to wherever they were going. And then the next day, they went out to get the bus, and there was no bus. And there was no information on the bus stops, and there was no information on the Stagecoach website, i.e. the company that provides the service on behalf of WECA. There was no information from WECA. There was no information on Travel West, which is the website I think we're supposed to go to find out about our options for getting to places. So nobody seemed to know about it, and I tried to ask about it. I tried to ask Bristol City Council, and they told me that it was your responsibility, not your individual personal responsibility. But
everything's my responsibility, don't
it's
worry
all your
about
fault,
it.
yeah. So WECA was responsible for providing the information, but then I'm told in the answers to my questions that WECA said that Bristol City Council was responsible. However, the decision to change the bus service, which obviously had to be changed somewhat, was made by WECA. And therefore, that information would have had to have been passed on from WECA to the council. And, you know, and I'm not talking about political decisions here as such. I'm talking about the people who are responsible for administering a change and then passing it on to the other people who are responsible to communicate with residents about it. And that does not appear to have happened. And I don't know, I can't find a pathway, a decision pathway about this. And I feel that people were really badly let down. And just to say, I have asked Bristol City Council, and they have said it wasn't on them to do it, including Don Alexander, who is my councillor and was indeed the former cabinet lead on public transport. So he not only does he represent the area that's affected, but he was also meant to be responsible for, on behalf of Bristol City Council for delivery of public transport, which of course is not delivered by Bristol City Council, it's delivered by WECA and or the commercial companies. And in this case, it was delivered by the Stagecoach company on behalf of WECA, subsidised service. So all I'm saying is that subsidised service was needed by people. It was deemed as being needed by people, which is why it was retained, yet nobody bothered to tell those people that that service was not going to be available to them between January, coldest time of the year, and May 2024, sorry. And although it's back up and running, and that's great news and everything, can we please learn a lesson from this and ensure that this information is properly, it's made publicly available and it is shared with all the relevant authorities so that everybody knows what's going on and people don't have to get up in the morning and think, oh, I'll go to work today as usual, and then I'll get there and find that I can't go to work because... So, yes, hospital appointments, absolutely. But the point is if you work at the hospital and you suddenly find you can't get there, what are you going to do? All the people that might have got to the hospital with no problem, yet then find they haven't got someone to, you know, deal with them. Anyway, that's really what I came here to say.
Well, Jo, I can honestly say, well done. Tony, the leader of Bristol Council's here, he's heard, I've heard. We both feel like we've gone to the headmaster for telling off. So you've done your job, we will look into that and we'll get back to you, okay? It's not acceptable, I agree with you, and I'm sure Tony would agree too. Okay, thank you. Right, we now come to, thank you everybody who's given presentations today. Really appreciate it. I know that's a tough thing to do, and I'm really grateful. It really does help us understand, to hear directly from you, so thank you for that. Right, the next item is item 6, comments from the chair of the West of England Local Enterprise Partnership Board. It's always the favourite item, I know, around the table, isn't it, for everybody? Richard, over to you.
Dan, thank you very much. And well, first of all, we would just like to say how pleasing it has been that the new government has invited the mayors in so quickly to start to think about local growth deals, future powers, future funding arrangements, and we were really pleased to see you there, Dan. Thank you for representing us, and we look forward to working with you in due course in helping to evolve and develop those strategies. I'm just looking to the matters arising within the papers. As you know, the business community, as the community at large, are very keen that we keep making progress through our transport challenges, and we are very pleased to support the recommendations in the papers that we want to over-programme the CRSTS. It's really critical that we maximise every penny that we've got out of that £500 million before the deadline. It helps to assure our funders, government and stakeholders, if we do so, that we are then ready to receive the next round of funds, and I know officers are striving really hard to ensure that is the case, so thank you to the team for doing that. We're really pleased to see that the strategic outline case for Futures for West is being presented today. We've talked about the need for a strategy that allows us to move through the business case. We know there's a lot to do, but we are confident that in September we have new plans before us, and we look forward to that. With regards to the investment fund programme, very pleasing to see proposals for Summer Valley. The LEP was very clear in helping to establish that with colleagues in 2017, but the ability to generate 1,300 new jobs in a rural community that helps to take people off the roads, connect communities that need support through good quality jobs is very, very important. And similarly, the plans for the Avon needs trees in the Chew Valley. We know biodiversity and the issues of improving the natural environment is both at the heart of your ambitions, Dan, but also the needs of the community. So thank you for bringing those forward. We recognise the work that's going on through the Best Value Notice. We're pleased to see that the panel has now been stood up, and we look forward to seeing the work of that panel in making sure that we can demonstrate to government that we've sort of moved forwards and that we are ready to take the next round of powers and all of the opportunities that comes forwards with that. And we're here to support you and officers and colleagues and leaders in that endeavour. The transformation programme, it's great to see the progress that is being made. And we've been very pleased to continue to contribute towards the long-term strategic plan. And it's important that the business community and others get the opportunity, as your officers have been able to do, to contribute to that. And we look forward to that coming forwards to help us to realise our ambitions. And then just very finally, we recognise the budget proposals. We recognise that there's a lot to get through as a team, and that continuing focus towards delivery, I think, really helps us to state the case for future funding. So thank you to the team for continuing on that endeavour. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Richard. I mean, delivery is key now, absolutely essential. We've got to get our heads around that, and a lot of us are already on that. Okay, thank you very much. Now, the next item 7, comments from the West of England Combined Authority Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So that's over to Alison Stretford-James. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee welcomes the appointment of a permanent CEO in Stephen Peacock and a permanent monitoring officer in Bob Brown, both highly experienced officers in local government, and hopes that with the newly formed Bristol City Council, we have the opportunity to refresh working relationships and working practices between the unitary authorities and the combined authority, as well as continuing the important work under the transformation programme as to how the combined authority operates more generally. The problems in working practices and in making progress with projects intended to benefit the West of England Combined Authority area have been thoroughly examined by the Grant Thornton Value for Money Governance Review in November 2022, the Solus Independent Review considering how the combined authority should operate in February 2023. Some of the central issues highlighted had not been satisfactorily addressed as late as March 2024, leading to the Best Value Notice issued by the Department for Levelling Up Housing in Communities on the 5th of March 2024, which set out its concerns, including the poor state of professional relationships between the West of England Combined Authority Mayor and the representatives of the constituent members of the authority, which is impacting partnership working and potentially limiting the authority's ability to optimise strategic opportunities. The notice requires the authority to reset the culture and relationships, and through strong partnership working, develop and agree strategic priorities to benefit local residents in the wider region. As the new CEO of WECA puts it, to become a bankable partner for central government. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee wishes to look forward into the future and support the work of the Combined Authority with effective and constructive overview and scrutiny. But we will all benefit from learning from the errors of the past and ensuring that those are not repeated from now on. As we discussed in the Overview and Scrutiny meeting on Monday of this week, it is essential, for example, in relation to the system of delegating decisions to Combined Authority directors for decisions involving, in some cases, up to £8 million worth of funding, that there is truly effective collaboration and communication between the Combined Authority and unitary authority officers and political leaders. We were assured at that meeting that this is in place, and we look forward to reports from unitary authorities that this is taking place on the ground. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee will be putting in place a working plan for the year ahead to ensure that members are able to engage in effective oversight and scrutiny to support the Combined Authority in the important work that it will complete this year. And we look forward to working with the Combined Authority officers to achieve this.
Thank you very much, Alison. I mean, what I'd simply say about that is I think the emphasis on the future is very, very important that you came to in the end, and I'm glad you came to the end, because I think we all agree that it's been a choppy sea, a choppy ocean that's been crossed, but I have to be very candid and say that was the abiding impression I got as soon as I arrived. So things have been going on for a long time before I was the mayor, and those things have played out while I've been the mayor. And what I think is really quite encouraging is that, of course, all the things that you mentioned are important, but what's also been important is that in that time, different people are now in charge. There has been natural change, which I think is very helpful. So all the people to my right are different people to when I was first mayor, and things were particularly difficult. If you think things have been difficult since you've been a councillor, you just do not know how difficult it was in the very first, literally the first weeks of me getting there. There wasn't a honeymoon in any way. It was very difficult. But look, we're not here to dwell on the past, and I hope you agree on that. What I think we're here to dwell on is the opportunities that come from new leadership of our councils, different officers, better working relationships that I think have already happened actually over the last 18 months to 2 years, that are accelerating now under the new leadership of the new chief executive. So I think there's some really important changes, plus there's a new government. So we would be very foolish, any of us, to not grasp those opportunities now, wouldn't we? And I think that does require us, in part, to not forget the important lessons of the past. I'm not saying that, but not to dwell on them. Because what I notice is that I know there are tensions in all combined authority areas, up and down the land. But what they're better at doing than us is they don't wash their dirty linen in public. We tend to do that. And I would ask all of us, including me, I don't pretend to have a moral superiority in this, but we all have to kind of focus on the future rather than keep reliving the past, because that's what they're doing. And whether we like it or not, we are competing with other regions. And I want our region to be the best it can be. And I think I've got the best product in the world to sell, actually, of any mayor in the country. But it does require us to have a mindset and a focus on the future, far more than dwelling on the past all the time. So I'm in agreement with you on that, and I look forward to working with you and the others here to that end. Okay, right. Next, comments from the West of England Combined Authority Audit Committee, and the fantastic David Wilcox is going to talk to us. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Chair. I'm literally going to dwell on the past because that's Audit Committee's job, I'm afraid.
You can't rewrite your speech that quickly.
I've just added at the beginning. Firstly, I would thank Jeff Gollop for so ably chairing the Audit Committee for the last 3 years. They are big shoes to fill. Secondly, I'd like to thank Councillor Toby Simon from Baines for stepping up to the Vice Chair role. The committee met on the morning of Monday, the 15th of July in the MCA offices. Our agenda included a verbal update on the statement of accounts. The plan is to present them formally at the September the 9th meeting. The Treasury Management Outturn report, the Combined Authorities Investments Plan, rose by £26.8 million to £381.6 million. The West of England Combined Authority Audit Plan from Grant Thornton, they have stated two significant risks: the valuation of the net pensions liability and the management of the override controls. They also stated two significant weaknesses in partner relationships and the turnover of senior staff. We had a cyber resilience update. It was a comprehensive briefing on the different measures aimed at enhancing the cyber resilience of the Combined Authority. This time last week, the world was recovering from the CrowdStrike incident, and I'm pleased to say that this caused minimal disruption to the Combined Authority. The risk management framework and the corporate risk register review. There are 4 risks with high ratings out of the 57 on the risk register. CRR 14, there is a significant risk that the mayoral combined authorities and the unitary authorities cannot deliver all of the CRSTS programme funding and projects. CRR 8, there is a risk that the mayoral combined authorities' current actions do not fully address the climate and ecological emergencies. CRR 5, delivery reduction of funding, the reduction of funding for combined authorities and unitary authorities impacting on delivery priorities and resourcing programmes. And finally, CRR 12, a failure to make progress against points raised by the government's best value notice issued to the combined authority on the 5th of March. We noted progress on the mitigations of these risks. The transformation programme. This was the first audit committee to meet after the best value notice was issued, and the local election followed immediately by a general election has caused paused progress on some of these actions, and they will now be picked up. The Mayoral Combined Authority Financial Regulations Update. The committee voted to approve the amendments to the Mayoral Combined Authority Constitution, last updated in 2017. And finally, we had the Internal Audit Annual Report. The committee received a report with 1 limited assurance rating associated with CRSTS delivery. 87% of the CRSTS is backloaded into the final 3 years of the project. There are doubts over the capacity of the supply chain to be able to deliver projects over these 3 years, and the DFT is clear that there is no further central government funding, and without a 20% local contribution, some projects may not be viable. The committee expressed concerns regarding the unitary authority's capability to deliver CRSTS for the Mayoral Combined Authority. The documents presented during this meeting are expected to substantially mitigate these risks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Well, there's a lot of that I agree with, actually. We need to get on with stuff. Things take too long. There is a risk that the money won't be sufficient. That's the real world that we're living in. But I think, without saying too much again, I think to focus on what we can do in the future, what we can control, because we can't necessarily control supply chain delays and, you know, inflation costs, clearly. But what we can do is deal with what we've got control over in a more effective way. And I look forward to working with you to help make that happen, please. Thanks, David. Okay, we now come to item 9, transport infrastructure. That's pages 21 to 76 for members of the committee. Now, before I formally move this paper, I would like to ask my Chief Executive, Stephen Peacock, to correct for the public record comments made by officers at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, I think on Monday. Am I right in saying that happened on Monday? Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. Regarding the M32. Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. So just for clarity, the M32 Sustainable Transport project has not been scrapped, as was reported in the press. The paper, which is now published, does set out the steps that we are now proposing. And put simply, the original plan, the work that was done, because of the nature and the scope of it, would not have passed the DFT value for money test. So it was clearly not going to work as it was. And so the scope of that piece of work has now been broadened. So it's a broader geographical area. And it will look into things like travel behaviour, not just along the M32, but around it, including making sure that if we make it harder for people to get onto the M32, we don't make it as easy for them to take alternative routes, because that clearly would not help moving in terms of congestion or air quality. So I'm pleased to say I think there's been very good joint working between ourselves, Bristol City Council and South Gloucestershire officers. So what we now have is a reset of that project which looks at that broader area, but nothing has been scrapped. So I just wanted to correct the record on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I mean, that was an understandable way that the journalist reported it. It wasn't a criticism of the journalist in any way, but we just need to be absolutely crystal clear. Lots of people are obviously interested in this. You know, we have got to get this right, because the traffic as it currently is wholly unacceptable, and we've got to use our skills and our abilities and our resources to make a difference in that area, because people have been suffering for a long time, I think. Okay, now I'm going to move the report. So can I call for a seconder? Is there a seconder, please, for that report? Okay, thank you, Ian. Thank you, Ian. Do any members wish to speak? Tony, you look like you do.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. First of all, thank you for that clarification. As you said, I think it was more misunderstanding of what was being said rather than any malice intended on the part of the journalists. Again, I would also like to add my thanks for the work of the Mayoral Combined Authority officers and South Gloucestershire officers, and for the work they've done with Bristol City Council officers to bring this forward. It is an important project, and earlier today, before I came to this meeting, I attended another meeting which is looking at what we're doing at the Bristol end of that project. I would like to briefly just comment on a couple of the other things in the paper, if that's okay. And one of the things I just wanted to mention is we very much welcome that some of the funding from the e-scooter and e-bike contract with TIL is coming to unitary authorities. And again, thank you to the Mayoral Combined Authority officers who negotiated this as part of the procurement process. A regional transport system is welcome, and there are lots of good ideas for use of this funding, and I believe that South Gloucestershire are also keen on a road safety partnership proposal with the PCC and Avon and Somerset Police. And also I'll briefly mention future for West. I think we can all agree we need a high-quality, enhanced public transport solution that provides the step change for connectivity in the west of England and, as we've heard, beyond the west of England. And we know we need to tackle our significant transport capacity constraints. And I think it is important that we make use of the opportunity we have in front of us to move forward so that we can start work on providing future for West for our area.
Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you, appreciate that. Ian.
Really do appreciate the clarification of the M32 project. It's something that, as a partnership in South Gloucestershire, we want to be evidence-based in everything that we do. And at that time, the evidence wasn't stacking up as was originally hoped. And to be able to just widen this project so we can look at how people are using the M32 and the destinations they're going from and to, I think will really help this. So that is a good piece of work. Again, really pleased that the future for West appears to be back on track, and we recognise that we really do need a mass transit system, and to be able to garner the obvious economic benefits that this could attract, as well as improving the quality of life for residents, the economic productivity, attracting the investment that this will bring. The list goes on, and I'm so pleased that we're able to bring this back onto the table and deal with it properly.
Thank you, Ian. Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And actually, I see the deferral of the M32 corridor as an opportunity, particularly for Baines, with more vital, sustainable transport projects. For example, the Summer Valley Enterprise Zone, Scholars Way in Bath, plus funding for livable neighbourhoods and safer school streets projects. So I see the deferral as a great opportunity for the region. Plus, in this paper, there's also the Bristol to Bath Sustainable Transport Corridor between our two key cities. And I see this as another great opportunity, and I welcome that in the paper. There are a few points in there that I'd like to bring out, specific ones, which we've noted that the cycle lane along the Keynsham bypass, we'd like that to be put back firmly into consideration within the paper. But crucially, conversations must be had between members of the public, parish councillors and ward councillors all along that corridor to ensure that we get it right. But one of the key interests of members of the public, they don't know the difference between Wecker and Bristol City Council and Baines Council, and why should they? So we just need to make sure that coordination is correct so people understand such a vital project in our region. I'm delighted with the plans for mass transit for the electric vehicle charging infrastructure. We welcome that particularly. And it would be amiss of me not to mention the points that members of the public have raised specifically, which is noted the resubmission of bus service improvement plan by Wecker to the government, which I think is vital. But I have to reassert to the Mayor and to our excellent officers the importance of genuinely engaging with the unitary authorities and members of the public. The need to reinstate lost rural services is, I personally think, is paramount to this resubmission. And I will not personally support additional expenditure on branding until essential services are returned to our villages and towns. That's what I'd like to say on that point. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much for all those contributions. Now, we've got 7 recommendations, so I'm going to take them in turn if that's okay. So let's start obviously with recommendation 1. All those in favour, please show. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very, very much. Now we're moving to recommendation 2, of course. All those in favour, please show. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Recommendation 3, again, could all those in favour please show? Thank you very much indeed. That's carried unanimously. Surprise, surprise, recommendation 4. All those in favour, please indicate now. Thank you very much. That's carried unanimously. 5, recommendation 5. Those in favour show now. Thank you very much indeed. That's carried unanimously. Recommendation 6. Let me just get my page over to check there's nothing different. Yes, all of those in favour, please show now. Thank you. Carried unanimously again. And recommendation 7, you'll be glad it's the last recommendation in this section. It's getting a bit repetitive. All those in favour, please show. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, let's move now to item 10, the investment fund programme. That's pages 77 to 102 for members of the committee. So look, I'm pleased to move this report, which includes a project close to my heart of £2 million to Avon Needs Trees to develop a new forest in our region. Now, I think, Kevin, do you want to leave, or are you just going to keep quiet? I mean, I think we're happy for you to be around as long as you exclude yourself from the way you said you were.
I'm happy to take the advice of the monitoring officer.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Send him back to Bath and then get him to return.
So, Mayor, the advice is that Councillor Guy can't participate in the debate if there's going to be a debate on Avon trees or vote on that particular matter. All the other matters he's free to participate in.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob, for that clarification. Thank you, Kevin. If there are any overlaps, we'll work them out, don't worry. Okay, so obviously I'm going to move that report to develop a new forest in our region. I'm very keen on that, as I've just mentioned. So can I call for a seconder, please? Thank you very much, Tony. Does anybody want to speak to this one? No, Ian? Kevin?
The irony, I will avoid talking about that specific point. Yeah. But there's another key part of this paper, Mr. Mayor, which is Summer Valley Enterprise Zone. And it's a point that a member of the public has raised, which is dear to all of our hearts, and it's the climate emergency. So the Summer Valley Enterprise Zone, hopefully, is the ambition of Baines, to be a net zero park with a green business park overall. And approving this proposal, I think, will be able to bring proper, sustainable green infrastructure jobs to the region in an area where a lot of people are commuting out. So we're looking at getting people off the road and creating jobs in the right places. So I very much welcome that part of the report. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else wish to speak? Tony.
Well, actually, I'm going to welcome the Lachu Valley, because this is going to be the southwest's largest new woodland in the generation. And I think that's a massive increase in tree planting across the city region, and it's an important response to the climate and ecological emergency. I'll also just briefly talk about a general comment on the investment fund headroom. We know there is pressure on the headroom, and I think it behoves all of us, as I'm sure you will agree, that we all work together to make sure that we utilise this to the best possible degree, whilst ensuring that we're able to move forward with the projects in front of us.
Thank you very much, Tony. Well, I think this is quite exciting, and although we probably, well, some of you are a bit younger than me, Kevin might manage to see some of these trees actually get big. The rest of us probably won't. I don't know. Depends what they are, I suppose. If they're native trees, it might take a while for those oaks to be big enough for us. But look, I think it's very exciting, but it's also hugely important. That's the point. We're not doing this just for a laugh. We're doing it because it really matters, because we believe there's a climate emergency, and we believe we should be acting and doing something about it. So it's really great to make progress. We're thinking about this in an imaginative way so that we maximise the impact of the expenditure that we're making. We're not just giving money away, we're making sure that other people come in with money to match fund in various ways, or to lever in other monies. That is important because we want to get maximum impact, because the money is precious and we don't have unlimited amounts. But I'm very pleased about this. I'm glad that there's this consensus, and I think we should use this as a springboard to even greater achievement in the future, because I think there's nothing more, I know this from when I was a government minister, there's nothing more attractive to a government minister allocating money than whoever's asking for resource who can point to success already, to show that that's a strong indicator of future success. It gives confidence, and it shows purpose, it shows capability, it shows good officers and good political thinking and working. So let's keep going on this, because this is just the early steps in my view. It's not an end in itself. Okay, right. Let's get to it then. So, sorry, Tony. Come on.
Just one quick comment is recommendation 2. I believe it's written differently in the recommendation, and I don't know whether you want to.
We're going to come to that item, if that's okay, Tony. But thanks for raising it. We are on it, but it's always good to be reminded. Thank you. So if we go to recommendation 1 before we come to recommendation 2, as you pointed out. So if I can ask all those in favour of recommendation 1 to please show now. So that's carried unanimously. Now Stephen is going to speak to us about recommendation 2.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as Councillor Dyers pointed out, recommendation 2 on page 77 is different in one small respect to the main body of the report below paragraph 8, the main body of the report contains 2 words, and implement. That was a drafting error, so they should be struck out. We'll obviously make sure the minutes reflect that. So it's the recommendation as drafted on the front page, which is the correct wording.
Okay, so has everyone got that correction? Are there any issues about that? Presumably not. In that case, can I put the correct recommendation in front of you? Those in favour, please show. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Recommendation 3, again, those in favour, please indicate now. That's carried. Sorry, Bob. Oh, sorry. Just as well, we've got a monitoring officer on it, hasn't it? Because I would have just pushed ahead and completely undermined what you just said. Okay, would you like to remove yourself, Kevin? I'm glad you're having to do it these days, not me.
I'll stand in the kitchen.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so we're voting on recommendation 2, is that right? Or have we done that now? 3. Sorry, hang on, what are we on?
You've done 3.
I've done 3, so we're on 4. Right, thank you for that. Okay, recommendation 4. Those in favour, please show now, excluding Kevin, just to be absolutely clear. That's carried by 3 to 0. Yeah. He can come back in now. Shall we just tease him and not tell him?
We've got fish and chips on the menu.
Fantastic. Well, that's good. That's really good. Okay, thanks, Kevin. This excitement is fantastic. Where you are is really good. Okay, recommendation 5 now then, please. Could those who are in favour please show? Thank you very much. That's carried unanimously. That's that item completed. Thank you very much, everybody. And thanks, Kevin, for bearing with us, and thanks for your advice as well, Bob. Right, item 11, delivery assurance. That's pages 103 to 134 for committee members. So before I move the paper, I want to inform the committee that I've asked my chief executive to my right to review the programme review board process and to make changes to our internal governance. For a long time, I've expressed concern regarding our ability to deliver projects. People will be aware of that, of course. I hope in a constructive way, but delivery is key. That's what we have to do for the people that we represent. And I know that the new chief executive is looking at ways in which we can improve delivery of key projects in our region. In fact, that's the reason he is our chief executive, because he made that strongly when we interviewed him, and that was very important to us. Okay, so in that case, can I move the report? And can I call for a seconder, please? Okay, there's lots of seconders. Who wants to do it? Who hasn't done it? Kevin, fantastic. Okay, right. Do members wish to speak to this item, please? Kevin.
Very quickly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's 2 key things here. The Milson Quarter Regeneration Fund that's in there is really important. There's a lot of key independent businesses in that area, so regenerating that centre, the town, is fundamental for the city of Bath. And secondly, it's the Midsummer Norton Market Square, which is a welcome £250,000, which will upgrade the new bus stop facility right in the centre of that town, which is great for rural connectivity. So I welcome both those points in the mix.
Well, I'm very keen on that development at the square there, so that's great. Okay, in that case, there is one recommendation on page 103, as you'll be aware. Those in favour, please show now. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We now move to item 12, the Best Value Notice and Transformation Programme, pages 135 to 194. This first formal meeting of the panel will take place this coming 6th of September. This report also contains the regional strategic framework. I therefore move the report. Can I call for a seconder, please? Thank you very much indeed, Ian. Do any members wish to speak to this item? Tony, you look poised, maybe not? Oh, okay. Kevin.
Again, very briefly, thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to see the regional strategy framework and particularly welcome the establishment of the independent improvement panel. And I personally look forward to reading the Solos review that's coming out soon, which it's a shame that it wasn't available for this meeting. I'm particularly keen to start work on the constitutional review, which is urgently needed. And as the points made by yourself, Mayor, that I want to look forward, and I think that we can learn from lessons from the past, but it is key to move forward. I'm hoping that this regional strategic framework will help us do that. In light of, however, the critical comments made by both the Chair of Scrutiny and Audit, I would suggest that report accompanying this item paints a little bit too much of a rosy picture for the progress to date. And given the extent of the best value agenda, it seems quite pertinent to myself to learn from the lessons past. And I do appreciate the work that's been done by the new Chief Executive and officers to look forward, and I'm hoping, Mayor, that we can learn lessons from Greater Manchester and other areas moving forward. But I do think this report is slightly rosier than it needs to be.
Okay, Kevin. Well, you've put it on the record, so we know what you think. Okay, Kevin. Sorry, Tony.
Thank you, Mel. I mean, my view is I'm obviously new to the committee, and I'm pleased to have met all my colleagues since being elected leader, and I'm looking forward to working together on this improvement journey. The Independent Improvement Panel is a strong group of experienced politicians and professionals, and I believe they've been a wealth of experience, and that will be invaluable to us moving forward. And I think it is a positive that there has been progress at the combined authority over recent years. Governance has improved, and there have been more opportunities for earlier engagements on proposals with us as unitary authorities. And I think the voting so far in this meeting has reflected that. Obviously, I agree there is still a lot more we could all do to improve the authority to maximise the benefits for residents across the region. The only thing I also just quickly wanted to comment on was recommendation 4. Obviously, it's important that our regional strategy focuses on the largest challenges we face as a region. That's inequality, deprivation, the climate emergency, housing need, and transport pressures. And we appreciate the new government has indicated a rapid pace and scale of change coming through combined authorities, as was indicated by your early meeting with the Prime Minister. And part of that would be the development of local growth plans. I think this paper also highlights the intention of the strategic framework to act as a basis for future strategic investment priorities, devolution plans and delivery plans. And I am keen, and also we are keen, that we make this a collaborative process, and unitary authorities, political leadership and technical officers can input into the development of what will be very significant documents.
Thank you very much, Tony. I really appreciate that. And look, I share your view. Look, no one is saying, I'll call you in a second, no one is saying that everything is perfect. I mean, I don't think there's a perfect system anywhere, frankly, but no one is saying that. But what I do think is it would be unwise of us not to acknowledge that there's been significant change. That does mean that we should now be in a position to take the opportunities that are available to us. And what we must do is concentrate on grasping those opportunities, and we mustn't allow process and the past and all that kind of stuff stop us doing that. That would be terrible. That would be bad for the people we all represent. And, you know, I don't hold anyone in particular to blame for what's happened. You know, I inherited what I inherited, and the report looked into a period that was quite a significant time, starting before I was even mayor, frankly. But what we still have to do is take responsibility for making sure that it gets to where it needs to be. And I do think it's in a completely different place, not just in terms of the processes that have been recommended, but I actually think there are different relationships now. I think anybody objectively looking from outside, or anybody who knows, I mean, you know, Richard probably has a really good insight because you've been on a lot of that journey with me too, having witnessed everything. Would say that it's a different thing. It is a very different thing. And at the end of the day, achieving things is about relationships, isn't it? It's about trust and all those kind of things. And I just think it's in a completely transformative place compared to what it was when I first became mayor. So I'm really grateful and pleased, not just for us and what we do as politicians, but on a personal level, because I much prefer getting on with people and having common ground than arguing over daft things. So, you know, I think we're in a much better place. I think it's quite exciting. We must now grasp that opportunity. Okay, so in that case, Ian, sorry Ian, you were quite right. Sorry Ian, apologies.
Yeah, thank you. Very happy to support the points on this report, and I agree wholeheartedly in the sentiments that are being expressed as far as our working relationships compared to how it has been in the past, and it is exciting. So I support this recommendation. Both the Solace Review and the Best Value Notice did outline the urgent need for an overarching strategy, thinking particularly of point 4 here, to identify the priorities that we have and to set the long-term strategic direction of the region. So this strategic framework is well overdue and very welcome, I think, by all of us. Just a couple of specific points I wanted to raise. Within the area frequently termed the North Fringe, which is actually confusingly the South Fringe of South Gloucestershire, there are employment areas and employment sites that support thousands of jobs across multiple priority sectors, including high-value manufacturing, cybersecurity, and at the YTL Brabazon site on the former Filton Airfield, we have one of the largest brownfield development sites in the country, with 6,500 homes and over 3 million square feet of commercial floor space, parks, new railway stations adjacent to the exciting new Bristol Arena. So that's effectively a city centre scale development that needs appropriate levels of infrastructure development. And the other point I want to make is the area frequently termed the East Fringe, which is actually on the West Fringe of South Gloucestershire, to add to the confusion, is home to over 100,000 residents and many business clusters, including the Bristol and Bath Science Park. However, many existing communities within the area experience high rates of deprivation, and I know that Dan is very aware of this from your experience over many years. We know of the inequality there, and there are around half as many jobs as the number of economically active residents in this area. So the South Gloucestershire Emerging Local Plan seeks to allocate around 4,300 new homes and 25 hectares of new employment land to this area. So it really is critical for us to ensure existing communities in the area are sufficiently resilient to accommodate such change, as well as being equipped to grasp the opportunity that this growth brings. So it's vital, therefore, that we develop this holistic strategy to drive sustainable economic regeneration. So I'm really happy to support this recommendation and thank everyone for their work on this so far.
That's fantastic, Ian, and thank you for the other contributions. Now, before we move to going through each recommendation and voting on them accordingly, I just wanted to say one thing, and this is a kind thing to you, Kevin, not a bad thing, but I don't use the acronym for my organisation. You use it a lot. I am very keen we don't use it, because when I go to see Andy Burnham, my good friend up in Manchester, he doesn't say welcome to Camup, he says welcome to Greater Manchester, because that tells everybody right across the country and around the world who we are and where we are. It's really important. When you start saying West of England, Kevin, I know we're going to be like that. We're going to be really close. I don't ever use the acronym for your council either, because I don't think it helps. I think Bath is a fantastic name, and North East Somerset, and I think that we should use it so that people know where we are, because most people get geographic locations, they don't get acronyms, and as you quite rightly pointed out, Kevin, people don't understand fully what the West of England Combined Authority does already. So I'm not going to make it harder by using an acronym. I want to make sure that people know exactly what we do, who we are, where we are, because it really helps us. Okay, right, let's move on to the recommendations. Recommendation 1, there are 5 recommendations. Those in favour, please show now. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. Recommendation 2, accordingly, the same again, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. Recommendation 3, please show in favour, if you're in favour now. Thank you, that's unanimous. Recommendation 4, again, please, gentlemen. Thank you very much, that's carried unanimously. And the last recommendation, recommendation 5, those in favour, please show now. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much for that, that's brilliant. Right, item 13, this is the Mayoral Combined Authority and Mayoral Budget Outturn 23-24, that's pages 195 to 222, sorry. So I formally move the Budget Outturn report. Can I call for a seconder if there is one, please? Thank you very much, Tony. You were there first. Kevin, just behind you. Do any members wish to speak to this, please? Kevin, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that the West of England Combined Authority...
Brilliant. Look at the progress we're making already. Fantastic.
This could be a long speech now. But
Combined Authority will do. Yeah. West of England will do.
It continues to, unfortunately, retain increased underspend in Baines's transport levy. Rather than spend it on the bus services our residents literally are crying out for in Baines, Bristol-supported bus services are currently overspending, and this overspend is being subsidised by funds contributed by Baines. I have spoken to officers about this issue on several occasions. This situation is, in my opinion, wholly unjustifiable and unacceptable to the residents of Baines. The transparency of the levy needs to be far clearer for residents to understand. I am, however, hoping that this can be resolved with cooperation between officers at Baines and Wecker. But it's important for us to raise this issue so residents understand the situation. Thank you.
Okay, well, you were doing well till you slipped back at the very end, but
Sorry.
but I got your point that you care about this. Well, look, it's a regional pot, really, Kevin. That's the issue. But what I'm always happy to do is have that ongoing discussion, because what I don't want is anybody feeling it's unfair. Because just as I'm sure you will know, Kevin, the other council leaders moan about all sorts of things as well, saying that you're doing better on something and South Gloucester is doing better on this and that and the other. There's going to be that tension. That's inevitable. It's your jobs to root for your areas, but it's my job to be regional mayor and to kind of work a way through and do the right thing by all of you as best as possible. Not that it's ever completely possible. Okay, right, so let's have a look then. So we've got no vote is required for recommendation 1. So that's just for noting. Are you happy to note that, please? Thank you, that's noted. Okay, then recommendation 2, there is a vote for this one. All those in favour, please show now. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. We now move to item 14. This is the 2025 Mayoral Combined Authority elections. That's pages 223 to 226 for committee members. Now, this report agrees the appointment of the Mayoral Combined Authority's returning officer to run the regional mayoral elections going forward. And I believe there's one just next year, so we've better get on with that, haven't we? Better make sure we're ready for that one. I therefore move the report. Is that seconded by anyone here, please? Thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate that. Do any members wish to speak on this item? Okay, it's not like we're only going to give funding if a certain outcome happens or anything like that. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. In that case, there is one recommendation, which is on page 223. All those in favour, please show now. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 15, Health and Safety Improvement Plan, pages 227 to 250 inclusive. I move the report. Can I call for a seconder, please? Is there someone who's happy to second? Thank you very much, Ian. Appreciate that. Do any members wish to speak on this riveting item? No, you surprise me. Okay, thank you very much for the non-comments. In that case, I'll take the recommendations on pages 227 to 228 en bloc. Therefore, those in favour, please show now. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We now move to item 16. This is the corporate risk framework. I do think we have some very exciting entitled items, don't we? So this is the corporate risk framework. So I move the framework. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you, Tony. The different seconders is quite exciting at the moment. Keeps me going, yes, given the titles. Okay, do any members wish to speak on this, please? Okay, in acronyms or otherwise? Okay, thank you very much. Then, as there's one recommendation on page 251, can I ask you to show if you are in favour now, please? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 17, this is the Audit Committee Annual Report and Self-Assessment for 2023-24. Now, David, do you wish to talk to this and speak to this at all?
I'd only like to say that Audit Committee does enjoy looking at the past and will actually delve in as much detail as it possibly can get and looks forward to working with officers to achieve it.
Thank you, David. And look, can I just say that I really think the work that you and your team do is really important. I think it makes us make better decisions. We don't always like to hear what you're going to say, but sometimes we need to, don't we? Because that's what keeps us on our toes, and we need to be kept on our toes when it's something as important as expenditure, so and other related issues. So thank you for what you do, and please pass that on to your colleagues as well. Okay, so therefore I'll move the report. Is there a seconder here? Who's happy? Kevin, thank you very much indeed. Anybody wish to speak to this? No? Okay. Right, so there's no voting required. This is for noting in that case. Is that noted, please? Thank you very much indeed. And that's, I think I've got that right. Bob, haven't I? I haven't missed anything important out there. That's it. Okay, great. Item 18. This is the Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report. And the committee asked to note the Overview and Scrutiny Committee Annual Report. Alison, do you wish to comment on, that's for 2023-24 for clarity. Do you wish to comment?
The report speaks for itself. You've all had an opportunity to read it. I brought forward the comments I wanted to make earlier, so no.
Thank you very much, Alison. That's great. Therefore, I remove the report. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you, Ian. Anyone wish to speak to this? Ian.
Thank you, Alison, for bringing it to committee. We note the robust comments that were made by the former chair of the committee in the foreword, and we have to recognise and acknowledge the points that have been raised. I really do feel confident that with the independent improvement plan now in place, a panel now in place, and the calibre of those involved on that panel, as well as having the new permanent chief executive who appears to be bringing more strategic direction to the organisation and promoting a strong ethos of collaborative and partnership working, I genuinely believe that we are resetting the relationship that we have, and I have every confidence that we're now heading in the right direction for the combined authority. We must never be complacent, and we will hold everyone's feet to the fire if necessary, but we know that the work that needs to be done, we will take forward with a positive outlook. So thank you for your comments on that, Alison.
Thank you very much, Ian. And can I associate myself with your comments as well? And thank you for your work and your team's work. It's very important, exactly the same way as I mentioned to David. You know, these things do make a difference, I believe. Okay, thank you very, very much. So we don't need any voting on this. This is for noting with any comments. We've had some comments. Is that duly noted? Kevin, sorry.
No problem, Dan. Yeah, I'd just like to echo Ian's point that the work of Alison and the team on the Scrutiny Committee is very, very important, particularly given the best value notice that we've received. I think using Scrutiny in a more productive way is vital to ensuring that we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. So thank you very much, Alison, for your team.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, in that case, the meeting is now at the conclusion, and I close it. So that concludes the business for the meeting. I'd like to thank all the public who've attended and dealt with the technical issues at the very beginning. Thank you for your patience. I really appreciate that. And all those online, I hope you were able to hear as well as see us if you were coming in online. Thank you to committee members too, and all the different aspects that you bring to this committee. I really do appreciate it. And thank you for the officers of the combined authority as well as the unitary authorities, because without their hard work and skill and dedication, we wouldn't be able to achieve the many things that we're not already achieving, but are going to achieve. And I'm confident that we're going to do that. And can I also thank our civil servant colleagues up in London who no doubt be watching, just so that they make a point that please know how well we're getting on and report that back to my fellow colleagues in the Labour government. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, everyone.